What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another HR Heretics segment. Today, we are going to discuss founder mode. So let me set the scene here, Kelly. Over the weekend, as I do, I was scrolling Twitter, mindlessly, and I came across Paul Graham's article on founder mode. And Paul Graham, for those of you who don't know, is one of like the OG Y Combinator people. He does a lot of writing online. He's invested in some of the biggest invest startups that we all know and love, Airbnb, one of the biggest. And this weekend, he put out this article called Founder Mode. And essentially what it gets at is a conversation he was having with Brian Chesky, who's Airbnb CEO. And I'll just read this section because I think it's really interesting. And it's the theme of the talk that he had with Brian. And it's founders feeling gaslit. And the reason why is because people have told them to hire people and to let them just run the company and don't micromanage them. Just like let these people, trust them blindly and let them run the company. And every single time Brian has done that, in his words, he said that he has been burned. And so Brian is now running the company in what he calls founder mode, which basically means for every high priority that he has, he is getting to the lowest level of detail. And he is doing what some people will call as micromanaging. So this is now taking storm. Like every single founder, I think, in my community has either posted about this or has said something about it on Twitter or LinkedIn. And I would say 98% of the responses from founders is overwhelmingly positive. So Kelly, what is your take on founder mode?
Mm-hmm. Have you heard that term before, Nolan?
No, it's a new term.
Okay. Okay, good, because I hadn't heard it before. But I do like in this article, it says a prediction I'll make is that once people kind of figure out what founder mode is and can define it and touch it and feel it, it's going to become a thing, which I appreciated. And yep. I read this article. I really liked it. I saw a lot of similarities and themes in this that we've been talking about in different segments and episodes the past year. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Which is like...
Yep.
Founders are different. And in my 15 years in venture, specifically working with many of them and talking to them, I do think that they go through this turmoil. And if those of you who are listening, please tell me if this is correct or not. They go through this like tension of everyone kind of telling them to be a certain way, work a certain way. You get a lot of terms of like, you're 0 to 1. Can you go to 1 to 2? Can you scale? Right? Like they're going through this identity thing where a lot of the stuff that they're being told is against their grain, so to speak. And this is where I go to work with these folks. You have to be able to meet them where they are and understand, because it is their baby, and it's very hard to just give it away and hire strangers, so to speak, to be fully responsible for those babies. And I understand that tension, and that's a very hard thing to let go of. And I think a lot of these people that are hired in, I'll be really honest, I think they like to tell founders what they like to hear. And that sometimes is not always in the best interest of the founder, if you know what I mean, because it can be frustrating to work with founders. So I empathize with the operators as well, but I think it's a really hard spot for these founders to be in. My bottom line is I think we have to have more empathy for them and allow them to kind of get into the weeds, so to speak, when they want to.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, more empathy for founders may be the most contrarian thing that you've said on the show.
I mean, believe me, I've worked with founders that are a pain in the ass that I didn't like, but they did found something, they did build something, like they're brilliant in their own way. I'm just saying, if you think you're going to be an operator that's going to come in and pound your chest and do your stuff, like that's not how they think.
Yeah, look, I strongly agree with you. And here's what I would say is like, I think the people will read this article and say, great, now Paul Graham and Brian Chesky have told every founder to start micromanaging every aspect of their business. Like that's what the naysayers are going to say. And I don't think that that's it. I actually think what's going on here is that we are exiting an era of where there was a lot of high-powered executives that didn't do shit inside of a company. They came in, they're very good orators. They're very good at relationships. They're very good at making people feel good. And founders got spellbound by these folks and trusted them. And ultimately what happened is they hired very big teams and didn't produce results. Results is the thing in every company. And this is for everyone who's listening. It doesn't matter if you're in tech or if you're in any other line of work. This is an article that you should read because the smartest and best founders of our generation are saying, like, I actually strongly agree with this. And so my interpretation of what it means is there are priorities inside of a business that really, really matter. And the founder needs to be all over those priorities. And even though the founder may be delegating those priorities to aspects of his or her team, that team is going to have the founder looking over their shoulder to ensure that those priorities are moving in the way that the founder expects. That's not micromanaging. That's just making sure that, like, we're staying in alignment. Now, I still think it will be weaponized because some founders, actually many founders and many managers, candidly, are terrible managers, right? Like the world is full of god-awful managers. And that includes founders, that includes execs, that includes middle managers. And I think people, like, those people are going to read this and be like, yeah, like, my management style has been validated. And I don't think that's right either. Mm-hmm. But what I think is coming here is a much closer lens on what really matters inside of a business. And people are going to, people who run companies are going to look into that and make sure that there is alignment in that business. And that's okay. That is good. And I think that's what we're going to expect moving forward.
Yeah. I hope this does not get weaponized. And, that's the hard thing about, and we've talked about this a ton on the show. That's the hard thing about all these things is you can take any article or point of view or quote and you can use it and swing way one way or swing way the other, and you can, get an article or anything on the internet to support your viewpoints. What I'm reading here is, like, founders have a certain mindset and DNA and makeup, most of them, and executives and operators have a certain DNA and makeup, and the best thing we can do is bring those two things together. Like, that's where I've seen it go bad, is when a founder will hire someone with the wrong mindset. And I do believe this starts with mindset. And that mindset is, do I care about what this founder cares about? Can I start with where they're at and help them operate from there, maybe see things that they might not be seeing, but in a lens where I'm still protecting why they built this thing and what they care about. And if you can't do that, and you're going to, again, kick and stomp and this and that because you can't build an empire and they're not listening, like, go work somewhere else. Like, that's what I say at the end of the day. Like, I have not liked every founder I've worked with. I have not. But at the end of the day, you have to respect who they are, what they've built, how their brain works, and try to work with it because it is their company. Do you know what I mean? And I have seen them get gaslit by people, including board members, right, who push them in certain directions or venture and this, and that's just not right. And so, I'll take Todd at Pendo. None of us are perfect. He's not perfect, but you have to work with them and respect them for who they are and where they're at, and try to change what you can and know what you can't, and decide if you can live with it or not. And a lot of that is they want to know what's going on. Again, it's their house, it's their baby. And sure, sometimes they break in and bust the door down. You gotta be, listen, you can come in, knock on the door, right? Like your kids, 13-year-old kid. Hey, I'm coming in. I'm gonna knock first for like 20 seconds. Like, there's a way to do that where it's not distracting or too powerful or, mowing people over, which I've seen. But that's not what we're talking about. And we've talked about this before. It's great when the founders are interested. Like, he wanted to dive way deep in our recruiting process and be involved. Like, awesome. You care about this. And so I think, again, I'll go back to mindset. And I think I hope people read this and we find a way to blend the two. This is not either or.
Kelli, I think that's maybe the most important thing you've ever said on this pod.
Wow, this is a really strong segment for me, according to you.
And here's the reason why, is because I have been in that seat to where a founder has started to give me the proctology exam in my world. And the immediate response is defensiveness. That's almost how everyone responds in that moment. It feels like they don't trust you. It feels like they're looking for something that's off. And you get into this like shelled up zone to where you're trying to protect your world. And you are coming at this problem from such a different angle, which is like, great, come on in, help us. We don't have all the problems solved. This isn't, the world's best people org, but we want you in here because we want to make sure we're building something that's aligned with your vision. And that is such a better way to operate than the way that I used to operate, which was like, hey, just hand it to me. Let me handle these things. Like, I'm going to take care of it. And, I'm just going to go put wins on the board. And then you'll trust me when the wins are on the board. And that way does work if you have like deeply established relationships and the thing that you're working on isn't the most important thing to the founder. But it's okay if the founder comes in and starts looking at things. And I think the way to think about it is like, don't let that initial fear drive your behavior with your founder.
Yeah.
Instead, do what Kelly's suggesting, which is lean in, bring them in, show them everything, open the Komodo to them and let them see everything in there. And Kelly, you're teaching me about this. I think this is a really, really good take.
Hey everyone, we'll be right back in a moment after a word from our sponsors. Your workforce is both your organization's greatest strength and largest single cost. With Planful, it's easy to unlock the secrets of successful workforce planning so you and your HR team can make the right business decisions. Imagine using data-driven insights to develop accurate forecasts, close hiring gaps, and adjust talent acquisition plans collaboratively based on costs today and into the future. Planful lets you collaborate with colleagues in finance to understand the value your employees bring to the table. And the best part, you can get started with Planful in just weeks with minimal help from IT. Plus, with Planful, you get an endless runway. Planful grows with you, no matter how fast or large your team scales. Ready to transform your HR strategy? Join over 1,500 organizations worldwide who trust Planful as their go-to workforce planning software at planful.com/heretics. Real talk, most talent leaders haven't yet cracked how to leverage AI for meaningful impact on their hiring processes and business goals. But the leaders who are effectively using AI to transform their recruiting team's efficiency and quality use Metaview. Metaview is the AI assistant for the interview process. Their AI records and transcribes hiring conversations, like intakes, interviews, and debriefs, then provides perfectly summarized notes of everything that was discussed. That means your people can focus on creating human connections with candidates during calls and save time on the busy work of cleaning up notes after every interview. But it's so much more than just a time saver, because perfect notes means perfect data. For every candidate and every pipeline, hiring teams can make confident, informed decisions, and talent leaders can finally take control of the interview process. Join forward-thinking talent leaders at high-performing organizations like Brex, HelloFresh, and Quora, and check out Metaview. Head over to metaview.ai/heretics to talk to one of Metaview's product experts, or get started for free. You'll be up, running, and AI-enabled in minutes. Yeah, and I'm just to be really honest, I'm not good at a lot of things. I'm really good at some other things. I do think working with founders has been something that I've gotten really good at, and I like it. And that's what I do when I, coach others and work with others now, is help them work successfully with founders. And I have not always been good at it, right? 15 years ago, I was like that. I was very oh gosh, I'm doing something wrong, or I need to protect this. I need to make sure that I seem like we have it together. That's a very natural human response. And over time, you actually learn that they're not asking because they're trying to catch you, or they think you're doing something terrible. And I'll be very honest with the audience right now. That feeling goes away as you get older, and you may need the job less. Do you know what I mean? I'm not protecting a job anymore. I don't need to be here. I like to be here. Great, come on in. It's different.
The other piece is ego, though.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, for those of you who for me, it was fear of, perception of not performing or getting your stuff done. Like if you can let go of that earlier in your career, it's just going to be a lot better. But it was hard for me to do that. I was 30 years old. I was young. You know what I mean? And now 46, you don't need a job. Great. Everyone, give me a proctology. Come on in. Like, it's a lot easier. And I will be honest, that's the human nature of it. If you can try to let it go earlier, it was a false pretense for me back then.
Yeah.
I wish I would have had a different view.
The thing for me was ego, which was just like, hey, I got this figured out. Like, I don't need.
No, you're not. You're kidding.
No way. Oh. I hope everybody heard that.
For everybody.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it.
Self-awareness is the first step.
Ego from the perspective of like, I got this covered.
I get it.
You know, like I got this covered.
Yeah.
And one of the things, as I've been really lucky to interact with people like you and really smart people every day throughout my career, is the people I admire most now are the ones who are just like, I don't actually have everything figured out. It's so much more earnest and real and human than the natural inclination, especially as we're ascending in our careers and maybe taking on more responsibility. The natural inclination is to be like, I'll get it covered. Like, I'll figure this thing out. Versus, I actually don't know like that answer right now. I can go figure it out. You know, I can talk, but what do you think?
Yeah. It's
so much better.
It's also so much more enjoyable. Like it gives everyone like power to be like, I don't know, but let's figure this out. And it's like you said, it's earnest, it's authentic. I always tell my wife, no one likes to know it all. No one likes to know it all. Like it's just better to work with folks that you can figure stuff out together, and not everyone has the answer because they don't. Founders included.
Totally.
You know,
and
on that note, founders don't like know-it-alls either. Like, you know, I always say I interview with founders, like we want people that come in here with open minds that maybe are open to doing different things. Maybe they don't know the answer. We'll figure this out together. They love problem solving. And I think that's for me, the biggest realization is before where you and I early on would be like, oh, they're coming in. We got it. They generally like to help and they like to learn. They're very curious individuals.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be misunderstood.
Well, it also turns out that a thing that worked at one company will not work the same at the next company. It may work better. It may work worse. And so, you know, I think that's the other thing too, is like we're exiting this era of playbooks. Like if you say playbook now, I'm bringing my playbook to a founder, you will immediately never have another conversation with that person ever again.
Yeah.
And founders are in a first principles mode because like their business is different. The world is ever changing. And things that worked 5 years ago, 2 years ago even, don't work anymore today, or they don't work with the same, effectiveness.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like one of those things, Kelly, that, you know, Jeff Bezos, my favorite Bezos quote is, will you gamble with me? Because we don't know what the answer is. Even if we've seen a pattern before or tried something else at another place, times have changed and they're ever changing. And so I think this is more about like, will you gamble with me? And can we gamble with founders together in a way that like, you know, we're aligned. And even if we are misaligned, like, let's go figure it out. Let's see what happens if we run this experiment. And I think that's the future of like really working well with founders.
Well, I think if you're going to work with founders, you kind of have to go into it with that, right? It's what are we going to do together? If you have a view and I have a view, like even if you have full conviction that this is the way you should do it and you're in manager mode and you tell them we have to do a manager mode path, and let's just say they listen and they're like, all right, Nolan, and they do it and it's wrong. I'm telling you, these founders have elephant brains. Like 3 years later, they'll be like, I'm never listening. I shouldn't have done that. Like, but yeah. If you work through it together and you listen to them and you still chose your path, they wouldn't react, right, with such a reaction. But they get really upset when they agree to something that in their gut they did not want to do and they do it anyway. They will blame manager mode for like a long time. So best to blend the two. I don't know what that word is. Maybe it's, what is it? What's founder and manager together? But that's the mode. Like it's not one or the other.
Yeah.
Manager mode. Famager. What do you guys think?
I love it, Kelly. I love it. And I think, you know, I've learned a lot from you over the course of the last year. I think this is an area to where people should listen to Kelly on this topic because whether it's a founder, whether it's a CEO that's like really hands-on, whether it's like your boss who's like over your work, this applies to all of those relationships. And the way I think about this is like, we all have relational capital. It's like a bank. And, the way that you could take out loans with a low interest rate is by including that person as part of the journey and letting them in and showing them how you're thinking about trade-offs and showing them how you're thinking about different, areas. And that way, if you do take a loss, that the loss doesn't hurt you that bad.
Totally.
Versus like, if you want to go spend a shit ton of relational capital, is like you go into a dark hole and you don't share what you're doing and you come out and the person who you work for hates that thing. That's how you burn trust to the ground.
Well, and not to get into clinical therapy mode here, but think about personal. Same thing. Same thing outside of work.
It's so true.
Yeah. So
it's so true.
It's a good topic.
It's an awesome topic. Yeah. So everyone, this is like, we're in the early innings of this thing going viral. So read it and let us know what you think.
Yeah. Thanks all.
See you guys. HR Heretics is a podcast from Turpentine, the network behind Econ 102, Moment of Zen, and Turpentine VC. Subscribe, 5 stars, share it on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, all the things.